studios on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Let's go straight to the front pages of the dailies, and I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with Kaduna, 50 killed in Army's aerial bombing of bandits, 53 injured, Air Force denies involvement, Governor Sani orders probe of Kaduna drone attack, offers survivors a free Medicare. To lose a bombing regrettable, that's coming from Christian Association of Nigeria. Our youth group all condemns a mistaken bomb. It was by Allah's mercy that we survived. This coming from a survivor. NEF demands investigation. You can see that on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. And here there's a photo story that was taken at the meeting of the NISS delegation with the Vice President at the Presidential Villa in Abuja yesterday. Now on page 25, while we pass 2024 budget for second reading, that's coming from ABARIBEM, I've not seen lawmakers debating budget without a detailed breakdown. That's coming from Ningi. Senate Appropriations Committee meets with MDAs, stakeholder orders today. On page 13, Benue APC crisis, ex-Senate President orders pass confident vote on Aliyah. Nigeria's trade surplus rises 47% to 1.8 trillion naira in third quarter of 2023. And on page 31, sport, Pesahero safe until after AFCON. That's coming from Sports Minister. Now on page 21, gas flaring. Nigeria loses 702 billion naira as oil firms flare 241 million SCF. Federal government resumes trial of adding the Boko Haram and ISWAP terror suspects. Now, stories above on page 9. We have COP28. Federal government sponsored only 422 delegates. That's coming from the Information Minister. Emefiele, Nigerians in United States accuse federal government of right abuse. That can be seen on page 8. And lastly, on Vanguard newspaper, Obi knocks federal government over Vice President Shetima's new residence. You can see that inside Vanguard newspaper. Now let's move to the Guardian. Guardian is leading with despite 4 million out of school children, Kano, Sokoto, others spend 53.2 billion naira on scholarships abroad. That can be seen on page 6, and there's an infograph that gave information on over 120,000 foreign scholarships that was given by state and 10 years. Now on page 29, protest in Unica, over 100% hike in fees and levies. Now on page 3, NBS, only 1.5% of households affected by 2022 floods received government support. Tinubu faces a fresh legal order at Supreme Court. That can be seen on page 3. Over 80 dead as Army admits error in 10th accidental bombing in 2 years. Now let's move to the Punch newspaper. Punch is leading with outrage as warplanes accuse 85 in Kaduna village bombing. Villagers lament bombing during Maulud celebration. Deputy Governor begs Islamic clerics. Christian Association of Nigeria, AI, others condemn airstrike. Accidental bombings killed 425 citizens since 2017. That can be seen on page 3, and there are 3 photo stories there with a writer that says collapsed bridge making life unbearable. Lagos community laments. On page 18, family panics as 13-year-old schoolgirl disappears in Lagos. Gateway police shot over robbery attacks. That can be seen on page 5. Stories above the banner. 366 Boko Haram terrorists convicted, 4 financiers are jailed. That's according to the Attorney General of the Federation. Lastly, on the Punch newspaper, cash shortage hits banks, customers rush for BVN and mean revalidation. That can be seen on page 21. Now, the Nation newspaper. Nation is leading with government orders probe after airstrikes killed civilians, scores die, many injured. Attack not intentional, says Army. You can see that on page 4. Labour to negotiate minimum wage commensurate with cost of living. That can be seen on page 5. Now, stories are above. We are budget 2024 hearing. Abbas, why Nigerians should participate in process. AGF laments a poor funding of justice sector institutions. All sector eat by influx of foreign workers. And below the nameplate, we have immigration gets CG, DCG, CNG buses begin operation in Ogun State. Lastly, on the Nation newspaper, Nigeria's delegation to COP28 is 422, says Minister Idris leads gains of summit. That can be seen on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break for the analysis. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is today in the news of Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of the page today, Like It Today, and the KGGRA today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damlola. Good morning to all of viewers.
Yes, and let's go straight to what most of the papers are leading with this morning, and that's the story of the Nigerian army who mistakenly bombed a village camp on Sunday night in Kaduna. They killed no fewer than 85 persons. According to what they're saying now, 85 bodies have been buried so far. What do you think about the mistake? Don't you think it's a mistake that is too much?
Yes, indeed it is. I mean, the sanctity, there's something called sanctity of human lives, of human life. I mean, human beings are not chickens. You don't just kill people by mistake. I mean, this is a tragedy of monumental proportions. And how do you begin to try to explain or justify or try to make sense of how such a thing could happen? I mean, the military is supposed to be a precision agency, an agency that works based on intelligence, based on information. I listened to the statement put out by the army yesterday, and they said they erroneously thought they were terrorists because they were gathered. I think they were celebrating Mahmoud, and they were gathered, and maybe from their satellite or from whatever viewing equipment they were using, they saw a crowd of people gathered and assumed they were terrorists. How can you assume something like that? And went ahead and strafed the place with bombs because they assumed it was terroristic activity. You don't deal with human lives with such levity and such casual mess. Before you take on a bombing mission of that sort, you check, you double check, you verify, you confirm, you use. This is a failure of intelligence. I mean, I'm not a military expert or a defense or a national security experienced person, but my common sense tells me that for army operations or even any sort of military operations, there's something called intelligence, which means they do groundwork first. They don't just send troops in blindly to places without already knowing what they're going to go and confront. So this is a failure of intelligence that they could have made such a calamitous mistake as to have mistaken civilians. I saw some of the video of the dead bodies. There were women and children among those killed. There were bodies that were maimed, that were decapitated, that were in all forms of just complete destruction, human lives. And the army has come out to say we'll compensate the families. Just any amount of compensation, does it bring the dead people back? I think, and then when we look at it, they say we've had 10 incidents in the last 2 years of this thing called friendly fire or collateral damage. And army is trying to say, if you look across the world, whenever there's conflict, these things happen. That by mistake, even the United States Army has sometimes when it was fighting Afghanistan, when it was fighting in Yemen, sometimes when he was trying to bomb the enemy, he bombed his own people by mistake because from the air you can't always see. But that to me is a cop-out. You don't look at the wrongs that others have done and use to justify the wrong that